Welcome back to the Give Back Girls podcast. I'm Toria McFadden.
And I'm Anita Cunningham.
Today, Anita and I have the pleasure to talk with Mark Adams from the Bloomington-Normal Community Land Trust, which is a new nonprofit to us, and we are excited to learn more about everything they bring to our community.
You know, recently in our 100 Women for Good meetings, we've been hearing from more nonprofit organizations that served our unhomed population in Bloomington-Normal. And I know many of us, myself included, have been really taken aback by this growing need in our own backyard. And so today, Mark's going to tell us about another nonprofit that's helping fill this gap in our community.
You are spot on, Anita, so let's get to it. I want to introduce Mark Adams, who is the president of the Bloomington-Normal Community Land Trust. Welcome to the Give Back Girls podcast.
Yes, thanks for joining us, Mark. We're excited to have you. And as Toria said, this is a new nonprofit for us, so we're excited to learn more and spread the word about what your organization is all about. So you're still relatively young. You've only been in existence for just under 2 years. Can you tell us a little bit about your mission and how you got started?
Yeah, so our mission is to retain and grow the Bloomington-Normal community by providing affordable and varied housing through a land trust founded on equity, sustainability, and resiliency. Our vision is to create environmentally sustainable, affordable, and diverse housing through collaboration with community partners to promote inclusive neighborhoods, institutional change, and good stewardship. And those values that we hold dearly are resiliency, equity, and sustainability. In terms a little bit about how we got started, it was simply a conversation that led to a further conversation with colleagues and friends in Bloomington-Normal, some of whom I went to ISU with, so it's kind of full circle, and then some that I've just really have known for a long time to see if we could at least get a steering committee started. And we met twice a month for the first couple months, and then once it was pretty clear that everyone was bought into this idea and it was worthwhile giving a lot of unpaid time, that we would pursue it. So we just kept, we followed pretty strict project management skills, laying out our next steps, and making sure that we're being transparent with people who are interested. And, you know, we've had a lot more work to do just simply because we're starting from scratch and it has not been easy. And so appreciating the opportunity to be here with you both.
That's so interesting, Mark. I know when we met a few weeks ago, I was intrigued by your organization and how you are different than the others in town. And I was hoping that you could explain how you differentiate yourself from those other nonprofit groups that focus on the same community need of the unhomed.
Yeah, for sure. So just to be clear, we only have a few select nonprofits in Bloomington-Normal that have heavy capacity focused on affordable housing. And so obviously, you know, our initial research when we started this was this a much needed gap to start from scratch, or was it something that could be sponsored from a current nonprofit or another entity? And it was pretty clear that after some conversations with stakeholders and partners and other entities in the area that we were going to have to start from scratch. And so the specific niche that it fills is that basically we are a nonprofit that seeks to acquire, in at least for the next 5 to 10 years, single-family homes, rehabilitate them, sell the physical home, but retain the land through a 99-year ground lease. And specifically with that gap, there is no nonprofit in Bloomington-Normal that does any of that, does not do rehab specifically. Right now, the city and town have had occasional IDA dollars, Illinois Housing Development Authority dollars, but again, they're facilitating that, and so there's not that ongoing service that has a really far-reach capacity need. So that's a little bit about that gap. I think that has really been very resonate with a lot of our audiences.
Oh, that's great. Maybe a follow-up question. How do the houses get renovated? Do you have folks on your team that do the renovations, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so we have basically a very flexible business plan that permits for different ways to acquire and rehab. We suspect, based on our research and our planning, that we're going to acquire through raising capital and funds for the first home by going market, and just simply having at least 30% of that down payment ready so that when we are working on the rehab and it goes to the next homeowner, that essentially there is no lien or loan on the land itself, because we don't want to be in the red for something like that. So essentially we'll go to market, we'll find the house, and then when it'll take, our estimate is 1 to 2 years for the rehab that we want to do, at least for the first home, and hence why we're really focusing on that light to moderate and not a full gut. And so we will be applying for local CDBG dollars for that, because that is really a perfect fit for CDBG. For affordable housing, CDBG can't be used for new construction. And so it really does limit it to rehab. And because we're one of the few, we know we would be a good fit for that program. But we're also making pitches to our local trades laborers, and they've been receptive to possible volunteer of labor. And we also have talked with employers and also other circles like Kiwanis for getting the supplies. So I mean, it really is just making sure that we find where there's overlap, where there's interest, and it'll work. We haven't had any dead ends.
Awesome. Now, you referenced an acronym there that I wasn't super familiar with. CDBG?
Mm-hmm. CDGB.
CDGB. Thank
CDBG.
you. Either it's a club
Cat,
in New York.
dog, boy, girl.
Oh, I had it
That's
wrong.
okay. That's all right. That's okay. So that stands for Community Development Block Grant. It is an formulaic allocation from HUD. And although there's speculation of what the future looks like for CDBG and most government programs, this one's still renewed for the next year. And so basically what that is you have non-entitlement and entitlement communities. Entitlement communities have a certain threshold that they meet in terms of population and other criteria to be eligible for this federal grant. And typically, any municipality that's, I would say, less than 50,000 isn't going to be that direct recipient. And if you are like, again, a small town like Downs or Lexington, you're a non-entitlement, which means you're still entitled it, but you have to go to the state for that.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is how all the setup for this podcast worked, is Mark educating me, just so you know.
My gosh.
More acronyms, all kinds of things.
Sorry.
No, it's
no,
good.
this is perfect.
This is great information. Okay, so once you have these homes for folks that are available, how do people apply or find out about the opportunity to benefit from these services?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that right now, if someone were to come to us and say, I really want to be the first BNCLT homeowner, I would just encourage you to monitor our website, stay tuned. We are not, in a best case scenario, our plan is by the end of this September to have roughly 48,000 raised. And the latest is we've raised 10,000 in the first month. And so we're on pace, and we are optimistic we'll hit that benchmark, but what we don't want to do is have a waiting list secure until we have a strong sense of our timeline into next year. So I'm safely saying that, I would say by actually about a year from now, spring of 26 is when we hope to open a waiting list. And that would be open to the public through our website. We'll broadcast it over social media and through different channels. We'll do a press release. But I would say that hopefully within the next year, that will be available, at least that arm of the CLT, not including the chip.
Great.
That's great. So let's look forward even farther. Let's say you've got, your waiting list, you've got people in these homes, which, what a great vision. What if someone ends up needing to move for some reason? They need to move to another community, or they end up not needing your assistance any longer. I mean, what a great thought that would be, right? Mm-hmm. What happens in that situation?
So overall, the great thing about a community land trust, especially for the purpose of affordable housing, based on best practices, is that it's very flexible. So if that were to happen, we would, at that point, have established our policy manual. And our policy manual is going to explicitly state what the process is. So essentially what you would have is the homeowner would notify us, and our goal is to build rapport with that homeowner. So we're not necessarily a landlord, but we're really, a source of help. But we would have flexibility in that ground lease, and it would require documentation. So if it is a new job accepted, If it's under 5 to 10 years from that closing, then yes, we would have to make sure that we come to an agreement and it would be legally binding. However, it would open up another avenue for another homeowner. So I would say that in terms of market, the same thing. We haven't really identified or tagged down or really identified what that minimum threshold for living in that home is. But likely, given what I've seen with down payment assistance grants and certain grants of CDBG nature, it tends to be between 5 to 10 year minimum. So, and I would hope that our homeowners that are going through this orientation process, it's not going to be a handout. It really is going to be an extensive process of vetting that they would feel like, okay, I'm in this for at least a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, when they're putting that level of commitment in at the beginning, lots of incentive to stick around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Mark, we typically ask our nonprofits who join us for like a personal story or something that has been really impactful for them within the nonprofit. We know you're still in early days, but do you have anything like that you might want to share?
Well, several. I'll say that the number one was really our first community home improvement project event. So we really have two arms. The main arm that we do, of course, is what I just described about the rehab of single-family homes, selling the home but leasing the land. But the other arm is going to be a community service arm. And so one of the things that is a key center about CLTs is land stewardship. And so we have a Tier 1 and Tier 2 CHIP. It stands for Community Home Improvement Project Squad. And with our CHIPs, basically it's once a month, once we have CLT homeowners, we will offer any kind of light to moderate home repair or maintenance. It should be maintenance, hopefully. And then we also do this currently on a quarterly basis. We do CHIPs for elderly and or disabled homeowners in Blono. And so we've already done that twice. The first one was it was definitely very memorable. It was an old friend of mine who is physically disabled and is also just retired. So she just became a homeowner maybe about 5 years ago, and she definitely needed help with accessibility maintenance. So like painting, putting in cabinet handles so that she could actually open up her kitchen cabinets, cleaning her gutters, because she's in no way ready to or able to get up on a ladder. And we painted most of the inside of her house except for maybe 2 bedrooms. So it was just it felt really good to actually do something, because so much of what we have been doing and continue to be doing is just, computer work and talking. And I'm much more of a doer than a talker. I'll do both, but I'm much more of a doer. So it just was a wonderful experience, and it felt like, we can make a small difference as we continue to move forward. And we did another CHIP in November that went well. We replaced a whole staircase for an elderly homeowner in South Bloomington in the trailer park there. And we just raised, in terms of funding, people ask, I said, when you're talking about small projects, and we have a board fortunately of 11 people, and each person chips in $50 to $100, and then we're not really talking about fundraising anymore, at least for the small things. So it really, really helps to put some pictures and marketing material to what we're trying to do.
That was a great pivot, because you brought up the board, and that was something that I wanted to talk about a little bit. Your board is a little unique, I think, for at least to me, because your board is made up of not just members of the community, but also a mix of community members and residents. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we have basically, from the beginning, we've had about 10 to 12 board members, and we just certified our results from the March first annual membership meeting, where we swore in 11 of our first year board members, and everyone has been assigned either a 2 or a 3 year term. And basically, we have board members that have either lived experience with housing instability. We have individuals who are small business owners, and so they know what it takes to basically get us from really inception to scale. We have teachers on our board. We have planners. We also have people who are just not really have a college background, but they just simply work at Ferraro. And they're wonderful human beings with great values. And so I also am really grateful for a couple of our board members who actually have very specific skills that serve as a much needed capacity role. So we have someone who has experience in housing law and practicing housing law. We have someone who does rehabilitation work for a national nonprofit in housing. And so having those two, especially the latter, really helps us to know, is this really a full gut? And just by first glance, and we've already looked at a home, and he told me within 20 seconds this is what you're looking at. So we continue to have conversations, but I think that what's so critical is that you have board members that are not just committed to the principle, but you have a really diverse skill set, world experiences, perspectives, and having that capability and the competency is really critical for the success.
Yeah, that's great. And so it sounds like your board members also donate. They contribute. How else do you raise funds? Do you have any events coming up or anything that our listeners might be able to participate in if they're interested in helping?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really happy to share that we've raised about $10,000 through individual givings and pledges from individual donors as well as a couple corporate donors, and we're still working on those for more. So a lot of what we're doing fundraising is letters of intent, sending letters to employers and private donors who might be interested and able to give a little bit more. We're also applying to a variety of any kind of public and private grants that come up. We've already applied for a couple, and we're also, the big one that will be coming up that we'll definitely need help getting the word out is going to be on June 27th. It's a Friday evening, and that is going to be our first ever gala, and it's going to be at the Alumni Center right down the street here at in ISU. And Georgine Giselle is going to be our main contact on that. She's going to be really running the ship on that since she has experience doing that kind of work. And hopefully we can get at least 80 to 100 people for that, and it'll help us fundraise. I mean, it is a very manageable scope. We've had enough of green lights from different players on our end to really buy into the concept. If you build it, they'll come.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. And on your website, can people find information about how to purchase tickets? So for our listeners, in the show notes, we will have a link to the website so that if you are interested in attending this fabulous gala on June 27th, you'll be able to find the tickets there on the website. Okay, maybe a little bit of a different approach. You had mentioned some of the partners that you already have established. Are there other nonprofits that you partner with closely in the community that you'd like to mention, or anything else that you would like our listeners to learn today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think that, especially when you're relying entirely on volunteer capacity, that you could do this on your own. So obviously partnerships are going to make or break, or at least make or slow down. It depends on how you look at it. But essentially, we have a couple really important partners, and I would argue that the number one is going to be Youth Build. And that is simply because Youth Build does have a program that is very, very similar in nature, except for the concept of that ground lease. And so they just sell it and call it a day, similar to a land bank, which is different than a land trust. And so Youth Build, we're going to rely on them on helping us open up our channels to acquiring homes at with low-hanging fruit method where we're not having to raise market every time. And also giving more home opportunities for their youth labor who are actually building their skill sets, which, again, fills a need for us. So we definitely think Youth Build will probably be our top partner, but obviously Home Sweet Home has been a big partner. We want to make sure that people who are living in the encampments that move on to a shelter and have a connection with Home Sweet Home, and they want to be a homeowner, they just need a little bit of help. That would be another pathway. And then the last big partner is going to be Habitat for Humanity of McLean County, of course. Right now, Habitat does not do rehab. They only do new construction, hence why we're not doing new construction. And also, we're really exploring that relationship to make sure that we have a really finite scope. And so we're looking to serve people who are between 60 to 100% of the area median income. So that's safely between, I would say, just roughly 50 to 80,000 in annual household income gross. And so that's kind of that sweet spot. And I love to put faces and people to those occupations. And so that is your single mom who's a teacher for Unit 5 or District 87. That's your entry-level assembly line worker at Ferraro or Rivian. That is for two parents, one with a young child and a stay-at-home parent, and the other parent is working. Yeah, that would be kind of who we're looking to serve. So we know Habitat for Humanity does that, and we're really eager to help everyone. But in order for us to really get this to scale and be financially feasible in our work, it has to be really people in that market niche. So yeah.
That's great.
Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us today and sharing so much about the Bloomington-Normal Community Land Trust. It was informative for us, learned a lot. I say that every time. About the first land trust in Illinois outside of Chicago, focused on housing purposes for a community like ours, especially. But again, outside of a huge metropolitan area, again, I just can't say it enough how much more I feel like my mind's exploding right now.
I know.
So, but again, the good your organization's doing, the sustainability and reusability aspect of it. I mean, if someone wants to donate a house, I'm going to refer them to you in the future. Not to mention just, those in need and needing somewhere to live in the future. So thanks again, and utilizing those existing structures within our community on top of helping the homeless. So thank you.
Well said, Toria. I echo everything Toria said. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining us today and for your work with the Bloomington-Normal Community Land Trust. All right, so that about wraps it for this episode of the Give Back Girls. Look for our next episode coming soon. We can't wait to introduce you to the next nonprofit. And before I sign off, a special thank you to the Illinois State University School of Communication for their studio production and editing services.
And with that, as always, go out and do some good and give back.